In this video, you're going to see an example of a market sizing case interview. So you're going to see me, Julio, an ex-Bain consultant, interview Bruno, an ex-McKinsey consultant, using a market sizing case. Now, these cases are quite common in management consulting interviews. So Bain, McKinsey, BCG, but also in finance, product management, and even strategy interviews. So it's a good idea to master them before you go into your interviews so you don't get surprised by a tricky question. So I wanted to make this video in a way that you could understand what a market sizing is, but also learn from this example. So what I did is I'll first interview Bruno. So that's what you're going to watch in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the video. But then I'm going to make a breakdown. I'm going to take the highlights from Bruno's performance, and I'm going to show you and explain what's going on and what you can learn from his performance that you can do in your own interviews. Now, if you want to learn even more about market sizings and learn a step-by-step process to solve any market sizing case, and also get some high-quality practice with good examples, with detailed answers and lessons in the end, you can go to our free course on estimations and market sizings at craftingcases.com/free course. That's craftingcases.com/free course. Now let's get right to the interview. So Bruno, here's what I want from you today.
Okay.
I want you to estimate the number of neurosurgeons that are in the world today. Do you think you can do that?
Yeah, neurosurgeons that work actively.
Yeah, active neurosurgeons.
Okay, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So whole world. And yeah, and if we're the only species in the universe with a brain, probably neurosurgeons in the universe, right?
Probably.
Okay, so all right. So number of neurosurgeons in the world. Okay, I have a couple approaches here.
Okay.
Number one is to estimate the number of neurosurgeries. So find the number of neurosurgeries per year in the world, so total demand.
Yeah.
And divide that by the surgeries per surgeon on average.
Okay.
Now, my second approach would be to estimate the number of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So active medical doctors, and multiply that by the percentage of those who are neurosurgeons. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and between these two, I think I'd go with the first one because it captures demand as well as their productivity in a way.
Yeah.
While the second approach, it's kind of hard to guess what is the number of the percentage of doctors that are neurosurgeons.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do like percentage that are surgeons and then percentage that are neurosurgeons, but that would be a little bit hard to guess, right? The only thing that that would be biased on number one that I can think of is it's not a perfect market, right? So so maybe there's demand for more neurosurgeries, but you can't train them fast enough.
Yeah.
So it's not a perfect market because there's a huge barrier to entry, which is like studying a lot of years and getting certified and stuff. So that's the only, it assumes a perfect market, but I can try to adjust that in the model. So I'd go with that one if you're fine with it.
Okay, yeah, that's my favorite as well.
Okay, sure. So can I have a couple minutes to structure how I estimate this? Okay. So number of neurosurgeons. As I said, on the first layer, I'm speaking as I think here. Okay?
Go on.
So as I said, as a first layer, you need to know the number of neurosurgeries per year in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I need to divide that by the number of surgeries an average neurosurgeon can do per year. Okay, so to find the number of neurosurgeries per year, I need to find how many people, so number of people who do a neurosurgery per year, and then multiply that by the average number of surgeries per person who needs neurosurgery.
All right, because some people will need them more than once.
Yeah, maybe there's something wrong goes in their surgery, or maybe you have a first surgery for exploration and finding whatever's wrong with your brain, and then a second surgery to actually do the procedure.
Yeah.
Okay, so it should be close to 1, this average, but because most people do 1.
Yeah.
But it should be little over, right?
Okay.
So number of people who do neurosurgeries per year, it's a little tough to estimate, so I'm going to break this down because I think it's easier to think of lifetime. So number of people who need or who do a neurosurgery in their lifetime.
Right.
Okay? I think it's a little easier to estimate, and then I can divide that by the average lifespan of a person. So obviously, this assumes that you're as likely to do a neurosurgery when you're 10 years old as you are when you're 50 or 70.
Yeah.
Which is probably not true, but it should be close enough, because otherwise I'd have to draw the curve of like how many people are in each age bracket, and
makes sense.
That'd be cumbersome.
Okay.
And then the number of people who do neurosurgery in their lifetime would be the world population times the percentage who need or who do a surgery.
All right.
Okay. Right. And then average number of surgeries per person who does a... Actually, let's change this up a little bit. I'm going to do number of people who need instead of who do.
Okay.
Surgery per year. And then I'm going to change it all. Number of people who need neurosurgery in their lifetime, which is population times the percentage who need neurosurgery. Right? And then I'm going to make the difference between those who need surgery and those who do surgery in the second bucket, which is the average number of surgeries per person who need surgery. Okay?
Sounds good.
Just to space out the variables a little bit more.
Yeah, I understand.
So average number of surgeries per person who need surgery. Okay, that's going to be 3 factors. Right, factor number 1 would be the percentage. So if a person needs surgery, what would make them not do a surgery? Maybe they don't have access to it.
Okay.
So percentage who have access. Okay. Then you have a second factor, which is the percentage of those who have access. So I need a surgery. Do I have access? Yes. Do I want to do the surgery? Because some people might not want to do it. Maybe there's a low risk of, I don't know, something going wrong, or maybe they have religious beliefs, or maybe they just prefer to, live their last days here on earth. Yeah. Not being in the hospital or something. So percentage who opt in. And then the third variable is the surgeries per person who does a surgery.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So do you want to see it, or does it make sense?
Yeah, I get it. I can see it from here.
First. Okay, sure. So, and then I need to break down the number of surgeries the average neurosurgeon does per year.
All right.
This is a tricky one. Let's see. So let me think of the best way to structure this.
Go on. You have time.
Okay, so my first layer here would be the number of surgeries. Because what is tricky here is that we need the average, right?
Yeah.
So it's not actually what the neurosurgeons do, but you also have to take into consideration that many of these neurosurgeons have more than a surgeon. just like a plane has a pilot and a co-pilot,
Right. Good point.
on average, you have two pilots per plane, per flight, or half a flight per pilot on average.
Okay.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
need double capacity. That's
Mhm.
what I mean.
Yeah.
And the same, like if you have the demand for surgeries,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you need 2 surgeons per surgery,
Uh-huh.
you need double capacity, which means you need twice the number of professionals.
Okay, makes sense.
All other things being equal, okay? So I'm going to do a number of surgeries the average neurosurgeon participates,
Yeah.
okay, per year, and then divide that by the average number of neurosurgeons per surgery. Okay?
Yeah.
For the number of surgeries the average neurosurgeon participate per year, this one is easier. It's the number of hours worked on surgeries
Yeah.
per year divided by the average time per surgery. And these surgeries are quite long, so yeah.
Yeah. I can
They,
imagine.
they can do many a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then number of hours worked on surgeries per year, because they don't spend all their time in the OR, right? So
Yeah.
so we need to see how many number of hours the average surgeon works per week,
Yeah.
per year, sorry. Total hours,
Yeah.
and then multiply that by the percentage of time spent on surgery.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm quite happy with this structure. Do you have any feedback here? It's quite a big one, so just want to make sure.
No, this makes sense. I'm on board with this.
Okay.
I am really curious in how you're going to get to these numbers,
Yeah, let's see.
but I do want to see.
Well, most of them are easy, but some of them are kind of hard, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with, I'll do all the assumptions at once and then I'll do the math later, okay?
Sounds good.
So population of the world, let's call it 7 billion.
Okay.
I know it's somewhere between 7 and 8 billion,
Mm-hmm.
but let's do 7. And then the percentage of people who need a surgery in their lifetime. That's quite a hard one.
Yeah.
Because, most people I know haven't had surgeries. But I think it's more than we expect because there's all sorts of surgeries, right? It's not just brain cancer.
Yeah.
You have people who have had trauma,
Right.
and you have older people with neurovascular issues.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also exploratory surgeries. So, I don't know, let's say you go blind or something,
Yeah.
and they suspect of a neurological thing. Maybe you can do some exams, but maybe you need to open your skull and check it. So I'd say 5%. So 1 in 20 people.
I can be on board with 5%.
Okay, average human lifespan, let's do 70 years
Okay.
to make the numbers work well. And also considering it's the whole world, right? It's not just developed countries.
Yeah.
Now we need to see the assumptions for the average number of surgeries per person who needs a surgery. So these are people who need surgery.
Yeah.
A lot of these people won't do surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So percentage who have access to neurosurgery in case they need it. So a few factors that I think here is, well, of course, very poor countries.
Mm-hmm.
Also poor people in rich countries wouldn't have access.
Yeah.
And maybe people in isolated areas. If it's an urgent surgery, and you live in an isolated area, maybe you don't have access to it.
Yeah.
So let's do 50%.
Okay.
Again, not 100% sure of this, but seems close enough.
Okay.
Then the percentage who opt in for surgery. I think most people would,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's the vast majority because, these brain issues that need surgery are sometimes quite extreme. Maybe
Yeah.
your doctor says you have 2 months to live, and then chances of surgery saving you are actually, maybe your doctor says, maybe nothing is going to go wrong. And if you do the surgery, your chance to live is small. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that, right?
Yeah, you'd be surprised because brain surgery can be risky, not only in terms of death, but also in terms of unexpected consequences.
Right.
And the outcome may not be so good. If you have a specific tumor, it may not be the best quality of life afterwards.
Yeah, and sometimes there's alternative treatments, perhaps. So chemotherapy, I don't know. I'm not a neurosurgeon, but let's call it 80%. Okay.
Okay.
And then the surgeries per person who chooses to do a surgery, I'm going to go with, as I said, it's higher than 1, probably not much higher. 1.1, 1.2 would be okay. I'd say 1.1, which implies that 10% of people who do a surgery need to do another one.
All right.
Sounds right to me. And then let's go into the supply variables. So number of hours the average surgeon works per year. Let's do 50 weeks per year.
Okay.
And then let's say 60 hours per week. Maybe more because they work a lot.
Yeah.
But also through their whole career, they probably can't sustain 80, 90-hour work weeks, right? So let's do 60 hours per week. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. And then the average time spent on surgery, percentage of these 60 hours per week that they spend on surgery. I'd say most of the time they're not doing surgery. One, because it's very tiring.
Yeah.
And second, because they have other activities. They have to do clinical work, right? So talk to their patients.
Yeah.
They have before the surgery, right? They have to strategize what they're going to do in the surgery, plan the surgery with other doctors, both other neurosurgeons and also other doctors that may be involved in the treatment.
Yeah.
Like a cancer doctor, for instance. They also need to do after surgery care in the hospital. They have to do probably a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And for insurance and stuff, right? And they have to train new neurosurgeons. Many neurosurgeons teach at universities or they do training in hospitals and stuff. So let's say 20% of those 60-hour work weeks, which would be about 12 hours per week in the OR. Maybe it's 30%, but yeah, somewhere between 20 and 30.
Yeah,
what do you think?
That sounds about right. That would mean a bit more than one work day in the OR every week. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I'd have trouble focusing on that level of focus that they need for 12 hours a week. But, well, maybe they're probably better than me at that. Right?
There's a reason why you're not a neurosurgeon.
And then the average time per surgery. I know many neurosurgeries take like 10, 12, 14 hours.
Yeah.
But I also know that there are smaller procedures. So things related to the spine where you don't have to go deep into the brain and maybe just releasing pressure from the skull. I don't know if that's called a neurosurgery or not. And then those would be like 2-3 hours. Maybe they're more numerous than the long ones. So I'd say 6 hours per surgery would be an okay average. Okay. And then the average number of neurosurgeons per surgery, my guess here would be 2, because maybe there's 3 in some surgeries, but maybe for the simple procedures, it's 1.
Yeah.
I bet most of them need at least 2. And I think outside very developed markets, very wealthy countries or cities, that people would just use the minimum because, in a small city,
you can't really afford to have 2 neurosurgeons for every procedure, right?
Or maybe you need 2 for regulation reasons or for medical safety reasons, but you wouldn't have a third one.
Yeah.
So I would guess 2 here on average. Sounds good?
I can go with 2.
Okay, so let's do some math since the assumptions are validated, right? So number of people who need neurosurgery in their lifetime. It's 7 billion people times 5%.
Yeah.
If it were 10%, it would be 700 million people. So that's 350 million. It's half of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to find the number per year that need surgery per year on average, I divide 350 million by 70 years.
Okay.
Okay. If this number were 700 million, we'd have 700 divided by 70. That would be 100 divided by 10. So 10 million.
Yeah.
But this number is 350 is half of 700. So it's 5 million people needing neurosurgery per year.
Okay.
Okay. On the bottom side here, average number of surgeries per person who needs surgery. So we have 50% of people have access.
Yeah.
And then 80% opt in. So 50% of 80% is 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So 40% will do at least one surgery.
Yeah.
And they will do that. The average person will do 1.1 surgery.
Okay.
So it's 40% plus 10%, 44%, which is 0.44 surgeries per person.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we need to multiply 5 million people who need neurosurgery per year by 0.44 surgeries per person. Okay, let me break down this math here.
Okay.
If this were 0.1, it would be 500K people, 500,000 people, right?
Yeah.
If it were 0.11, it would be 550,000 people, right?
Yeah.
So because it's 0.44, it's 4 times 0.11.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 4 times 550,000 people, which is 2.2 million neurosurgeries per year in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking the math here. We had 5 million people needing neurosurgery and 0.44 surgeries per person. So just below half of 5 million people. 2.2 million is just below half of 5 million. So
all right.
The math is right. So we have 2.2 million neurosurgeries per year in the world. Now, all we need to do is to find the number of surgeries the average neurosurgeon does per year, adjusting for the number of surgeons per surgery, as I said.
Yeah.
And we'll find the number of surgeons. So number of hours the average surgeon works per year is 50 weeks. I gave them a 2-week vacation, which might be generous to a neurosurgeon, but let's remember many of those are in Europe and they have a whole month for themselves.
All right.
Not all of them are in the US, which I guess those don't get a vacation, at least in their first 10 years of their career. I'm joking here. I don't know how it works, but yeah. So 50 weeks per year times 60 hours per week is 3,000 hours.
Okay.
Per year. And they spend 20% of that time on surgery. So it's 600 hours working on surgery per year, per neurosurgeon, an average of about 2 hours per day. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense, right? Then they spend on average 6 hours per surgery, and 600 per 6 is 100 neurosurgeries that each neurosurgeon participates in a year. Yeah. That's 2 per week. Maybe it's 3. Maybe it's 4. But I'll go with 2 and we can adjust later if needed. Okay. Just to be a little conservative here. And then we need to divide that by 2 neurosurgeons per surgery. So we get the average average number of surgeries per surgeon is 50. So each surgeon does 100, but they do it in pairs. All right. So on average, 50 surgeries per surgeon. And then to find the number of neurosurgeons, all we need to do is to divide 2.2 million neurosurgeries per year by 50 surgeries per single neurosurgeon. On average, 2.2 million if we were to divide this by 100 instead of 50, it would be 220K or 22K. So I divided by 10 and by 10 again.
Yeah.
Right? So 22K, but it's divided by 50. So it should be twice this number. Should be 44,000 neurosurgeons in the world. Now, I have no idea if this number looks right or not, so let me do some reality checking here. One thing that we can do is, so out of 7 billion people, how many, I'm trying to find like the percentage, like there's one neurosurgeon per X thousand people.
Okay.
To see if it makes sense.
All right.
So 44 by 7. Let me just work with easier numbers. If it were 35K, just to find the order of magnitude.
Yeah.
By 7 billion, that would be 35 by 7 million, which would be 35 by 7 is 5. So 5 per million people. Does that make sense? It's 1 for every 200K people.
Yeah, I think that's right. Let me see. 35 divided by 7, we got 5 on top. So it's 5,000 divided by 1 billion. So it's
5 divided by million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
so 1 neurosurgeon per 200,000 people. If you think with a developed world minds, that seems like a small number. But if you think that like half of people don't have access to it, that would imply a 1 neurosurgeon per 100,000 people in a country where everyone has access to it, which kind of makes sense. Most doctors are not neurosurgeons.
Yeah.
And I don't see small cities of 100,000 people with tons of neurosurgeons, right?
Yeah.
I can even use the example for my city. There's 3 neurosurgeons there. It's a 400,000 people city. And it also grabs demand from nearby towns and villages. Of course, many people in that city go to even larger cities to do the surgery, but this sounds okay. And another way to look at this is you have 50 surgeries per year per surgeon, but actually they do 100, right? Each one of them.
Yeah.
Just to triangulate this number here. They do 100. If they were, let's say in the US, for example, if they were to earn $5K per surgery, $5,000, then they'd earn $500K per year, which sounds okay. Sounds right.
Sounds right for a neurosurgeon, I guess.
Yeah, I guess for New York, they'd earn much more, but they'd also charge much more than that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 44,000 neurosurgeons is my answer.
All right. I'm not going to comment on your answer right now, but I am going to tell you, let's say you were missing the mark by 5x. So let's say the right number is like 9,000 neurosurgeons instead of 44.
Okay.
Where do you think your mistake would be?
Okay. Good question. Do you want me to just go in the lower number of neurosurgeons direction or to...
Only in the lower number.
Okay. So if we were to have less neurosurgeons by 5x, it's not because of population, because even if it's 8 billion, it would be more neurosurgeons, right?
Yeah.
It might be in the percentage of people who need neurosurgery. I can see this being 1% in their lifetime. It's not the lifespan. 70 years is close to the answer. Percentage who have access, 50%. I don't see this dropping to 10%. I could see this being 40%, 30%. Probably is forcing too much. Kind of.
Okay.
The percentage who opt in, so 80%. To reduce this fivefold, it would be about 15%. I don't see this being... I think most people who have a brain issue that requires surgery will do it.
Yeah.
number of surgeries per person who do a surgery, this can't be it because it has to be at least one.
Yeah.
For the number of surgeons to be way lower, given the same demands, neurosurgeons would have to work 5 times more, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Because they already work 60 hours per week here.
Yeah.
Even if they were to do 120 and not sleep at all, it would be just a 2-fold increase. So it can't be this. Can't be the number of weeks either. Percentage of time spent on surgery. So I put 20% here. For me, it stops 40%. So maybe it's a 2x increase. Maybe in the perfect world would be a 3x increase. So this could play a role, but it wouldn't explain everything, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something that can go much higher.
Yeah. Average time per surgery. For the number of neurosurgeons to go down, this would have to go down as well, assuming same hours on surgery per week. It would have to be like 1 or 2 hours per surgery. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like it takes half an hour to scrub when you're doing brain surgery. So it's not this one. And the average number of neurosurgeons per surgery, this would have to be like half a surgeon. So certainly not. So I think the main source of mistake would be the number of people who require surgery in their lifetime. And I said since the beginning that this is the assumption that I'm kind of not sure of. So I bet on this one. But it could also be that they do way more surgery than I thought with their working hours.
Yeah.
So maybe it's 1% of people who need surgery in their lifetime, and that would explain the whole effect. Maybe it's 2.5 people who need surgery, and then surgeons do 40% of their working week on surgeries. That would explain as well.
Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, Bruno, this is it for this case. Thank you.
So, what did you think? Anything you would have done differently than Bruno, or anything you didn't understand? Leave your thoughts in the comments and we can spark a debate. I'll be personally answering questions here for a little bit. So, basically, I chose this video because there's a lot that you can learn from it. So I want to take a minute right now and walk you through the highlights of Bruno's performance so that you can learn from them and from my tricks as well. The lessons are, number 1, the single most important thing to do in market sizings. Number 2, top-down structures. Number 3, the hardest common type of estimation. Number 4, how to deal with impossible assumptions. Number 5, the hidden gem, reality checks. And number 6, finally, the advanced technique that you need to steal. The single most important thing that you can do in your estimations, and if you're watching this video and you stop after this lesson, then I am happy with what you've learned, is to separate your actions. So you'll separate your structure, which is the mathematical path that you use to get to the answer, from choosing the assumptions, the numbers that go within your structure, and separate that from calculating. So from actually multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting the numbers. The reason you want to do that is you want to allow your interviewer or your client or whoever's in front of you to disagree with tiny points of your answer. So if they disagree with something, they don't have to disagree with the entire argument. Now let's see how Bruno does this. Check out how he's now building his structure only. He's not placing any numbers within it. Now look how he's choosing assumptions and leaving them there. So he'll discuss a specific point and say, okay, this is 5%. Now he moves on to the next one. He doesn't do the calculations with the numbers that he's got before.
Then the percentage who opt in for surgery. I think most people would.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the vast majority because, these brain issues that need surgery are sometimes quite extreme. Maybe your doctor says you have 2 months to live, and then chances of surgery saving you are actually, maybe your doctor says, maybe nothing is gonna go wrong, and if you do the surgery, your chance to live is small, and then you're like, okay, I'm not gonna do that, right?
Yeah, you'd be surprised because brain surgery can be risky, not only in terms of death, but also in terms of unexpected consequences.
Right.
And the outcome may not be so good if you have a specific tumor
it may not be the best quality of life afterwards.
Yeah, and sometimes there's alternative treatments, perhaps. So chemotherapy. I don't know. I'm not a neurosurgeon, but let's call it 80%. Okay.
Okay.
And now he's calculating. So he's going to do all the calculations at once and get to the final answer.
Number of people who need neurosurgery in their lifetime. It's 7 billion people times 5%.
Yeah.
If it were 10%, it would be 700 million people. So that's 350 million. It's half of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would allow me to disagree with his percentage of people who need neurosurgery, for example. Or I could disagree with the world population because he used 7 billion and it's generally 8 billion. It's actually 8 billion. So this is what we want you to do. Now check out how normal people, how actually most candidates would solve this case. They would say, so I'll start with the world population. I'll take 7 billion. Now I'll multiply that by the percentage of people that need neurosurgery. So that's 350 million. Now I'm going to take that and divide it by the lifespan of a regular human. So I'll divide it by 70. Now I have 5 million. And now I need to multiply that by the number of surgeries that a person who has a neurosurgery will do. So this will bring me to 1.1. This is 5.5 million. Now I want to multiply this by the percentage of people that have access to neurosurgery, blah, 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 blah. This is tiring and it's impossible to follow. So you just get too confused and you can't have an in-depth discussion about a single tiny point in there. And this is what consulting is all about, having all of these in-depth discussions so that you can get to the best answer ever. Same thing for finance. So you actually need to separate your structures from your assumptions, from your calculations. Now, this is something that you can start doing today. So in your next case, if you pause this video right now and move on to your next case, you're already going to be several steps ahead from all other candidates that are doing estimations. But don't pause the video right now because I can't really dissociate this from the second lesson, which is also the second most important lesson, and that is top-down structures. What this means is that when you're building a structure, instead of building a linear mathematical operation that will get from the beginning, like population, until the final number, you build a mathematical tree that will start from the final number and have mathematical breakdowns each time until you have a large tree that will get from the final number to the assumptions. Now watch Bruno do this. I'm going to show you him doing two different breakdowns.
To find the number of neurosurgeries per year, I need to find how many people, so number of people who do a neurosurgery per year, and then multiply that by the average number of surgeries per person who needs neurosurgery. It's the number of hours worked on surgeries per year divided by the average time per surgery.
Now, see how he's breaking it down mathematically one step at a time. Now, what this allows you is two things. Number one, your interviewer is not going to spend the whole interview anxious, wondering if you're going to get to the answer or not. The interviewer will know right away that you're going to get to the answer. You might make one mistake or another in the middle of the path, and they can talk to you about those mistakes, but they already know that you're going to get to the end. Whereas if you're going linearly from the beginning, like population, until the final answer, they're always on their toes, wondering if you're actually going to solve the case or not. And so they can't really help you with tiny mistakes because they don't know if they're going to be giving you the answer or not, because they're confused as to where you are and where you're going to get. What this also allows you is to have specific in-depth discussions in each breakdown. Now, you saw in Bruno's interview that the number of hours or number of surgeries that a surgeon does is quite a complicated matter. Now, Bruno could discuss that with me, and he could have discussed even more if he had more doubts. on that specific time, and I wouldn't be wondering why he's doing that because I already know where he's going to get. And so I can help him a lot more. And that's what you get when you make top-down structures. Now, I can't take this video and show you exactly how to do top-down structures, teach you the whole thing right now. Otherwise, this would be a 5-hour video, and that's not good for YouTube at all, trust me. So I'm gonna give you the deal of your lifetime right now, in terms of estimations at least. So Bruno and I have a free course on estimations and market sizings, and that course teaches you a step-by-step process, actually a 5-step process, to solve any market sizing case. And we teach you how to do each one of those steps. Step number 2 is building top-down structures, and we'll teach you how to do that in this course. And we'll also give you 3 practice examples so that you can put it to practice and actually learn how to make top-down structures. Now, you can find this course right now at craftingcases.com/free course. You'll see it saying case interview fundamentals because market sizing and estimations are one of the fundamentals of case interviews, but it's a full course on market sizing, at least the market sizing module. So get right to it, and now let's move on to lesson number 3. The next lesson that I want to teach you, the hardest common type of estimation, is one that I'm like 90% sure that's going to help you in at least one of your interviews. If you're like most candidates, then we'll interview in several different firms. Now, the reason it appears so much is it's a pattern that's common, it's simple, but it's the hardest of the simple ones. So it's the favorite for interviewers when they want to make intermediate difficulty estimations, which is very common for first rounds and even sometimes for last rounds. Now, this is a pattern that appears when you have to estimate things like the number of taxi drivers or ride-sharing app drivers, the number of hairdressers in a specific city, the number of gas stations, gas station pumps. There's a common one, there's a famous one, that's the number of piano tuners in a specific country, or even neurosurgeons. So watch this pattern appearing in this very case.
Find the number of neurosurgeries per year in the world, so total demand.
Yeah.
And divide that by the surgeries per surgeon on average.
Okay.
Now, what exactly is this pattern? So basically, we're trying to estimate the number of something existent, in this case, neurosurgeons, but something that provides a service. So a ride-sharing app driver provides rides as well as a taxi driver. A neurosurgeon is something that provides surgeries. A gas pump is something that provides fillings, filling the tank of your car. When we want to estimate the number of those, we find first the demand for that service, and we divide that by the number of that service that one unit can provide. And so we get to the number of units. Remember how Bruno said, I'm going to find the number of neurosurgeries, and I'm going to divide it by the number of surgeries that one surgery can do. So surgeries divided by surgeries per surgeon gives you surgeons.
And then the average time spent on surgery, percentage of these 60 hours per week that they spend on surgery. I'd say most of the time they're not doing surgery. One, because it's very tiring.
Yeah.
And second, because they have other activities. They have to do clinical work, right? So talk to their patients.
Yeah.
They have before the surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to strategize what they're going to do in the surgery, plan the surgery with other doctors, both other neurosurgeons and also other doctors that may be involved in the treatment.
Yeah.
Like a cancer doctor, for instance. They also need to do after surgery care.
Yeah.
In the hospital. They have to do probably a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And for insurance and stuff, right? And they have to train new neurosurgeons. Many neurosurgeons teach at universities, or they do training in hospitals and stuff. So let's say 20%.
Now, here's the catch. It's not that simple. This is not the only important insight that you're going to have in this case. The second one is the occupancy rate. Think about something with me. Ride-sharing drivers aren't always doing rides for clients.
neurosurgeons aren't always doing neurosurgery. Gas stations aren't always filled to the brim with cars, and hairdressers always have vacancies in their schedules. So the catch here is any unit that supplies a service is not always completely full with their schedule. So there's always an occupancy rate. Now, this is a little bit unintuitive. Most people don't think about this. So when you do think about this, you are going to set yourself apart from other candidates, because this interviewer has done this case with many, many candidates, and most of them didn't realize that there was an occupancy rate to be considered. Now, when you start doing that, you're going to realize that you need to come up with a number for the occupancy rate. Now, sometimes you're going to go for a visual approach. Now, you're going to think about a gas station and think, for X percentage of the time, the gas station is full. For X percentage of the time, there's no one there. So I'm going to use this occupancy rate. That's okay. Sometimes you're going to have to come up with supply reasons for the vacancy and demand reasons for the vacancy. So like hairdressers, most people don't want to cut their hairs at 4 p.m. because they've got to work. So that's a demand-driven reason for vacancy. And there's also supply-driven reasons for vacancy, like the hairdresser has to go to the doctor sometimes, so they won't be working. Anyway, these are drivers for the occupancy rate or for the vacancy rate, but you can learn more about them, and you can actually get some practice in these types of estimations in a free course. Now, I'm not going to bore you to death by telling you again where to find it. We know where to find our free course on estimations and market sizes. So let's move on to lesson number 4. Lesson number 4 is how to deal with impossible assumptions. So the principle that you need to understand with choosing numbers for your assumptions is that the interviewer wants to see if you can put logic and numbers behind finding your assumptions. So you won't just guess a random number.
And then the percentage of people who need a surgery in their lifetime. That's quite a hard one.
Yeah.
Because, most people I know haven't had surgeries. But I think it's more than we expect, because there's all sorts of surgeries, right? It's not just brain cancer.
Yeah.
You have people who have had trauma.
Right.
And you have older people with neurovascular issues.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also exploratory surgeries. So, I don't know, let's say you go blind or something.
Yeah.
And they suspect of a neurological thing. Maybe you can do some exams, but maybe you need to open your skull and check it. So I'd say 5%. So 1 in 20 people.
Now, what you want to do most of the times is create a little model, like a weight average, or you're going to, model it somehow with kind of guessed numbers, but model it somehow and get you your number. But sometimes the assumption is just way too difficult to get to, and you can't model. Sometimes you don't really understand how it works. You know what's affecting the number, but you don't understand how it works. So what you're going to do with those impossible assumptions is you're going to show the interviewer that you know what's affecting that number and that you can and want to put thought process behind it, but you're having trouble specifically right now. So let's take an example. Let's say you want to use this impossible assumptions technique with the percentage of people in the world who have access to neurosurgery. You would say something like, so I know that many people in the world are way too poor to be able to afford neurosurgery, even if they need it. And also, they don't have a government behind them that will provide it for them. So I don't really know how many people that is, but I would guess that people who are too poor to have access to neurosurgery is 50% of the population. Is that okay with you? So you're showing the interviewer that you can put thought behind an assumption, but in this specific, and you're showing them by saying what factors are affecting that number, but you can't right now, so you're guessing a number. Now, if you've broken down your structure enough,
you've probably gotten to a number that the interviewer knows that if you need, you're going to go and talk to a specialist, especially if you show that you know what's affecting that number. So that's what you want to do. Now, if you're having trouble constantly with choosing assumptions and modeling them and using techniques and triangulations, I highly recommend you check out our free course. We have a lot of techniques for choosing assumptions in there, and we also have a lot of examples. So in those 3 high quality practice examples that we have in there, you will find many, many assumptions where I'll use several different techniques that you can steal and start using in your own market sizings. So go join the free course at craftingcases.com/free course. And now let's move on to lesson number 5. Lesson number 5, the hidden gem reality checks. Reality checks are basically checking your number against some other number of reality to see if it checks out, if it makes sense. Now watch Bruno do this once in this case that he just did.
So 1 neurosurgeon per 200,000 people. If you think with a developed world minds, that seems like a small number. But if you think that like half of people don't have access to it, that would imply a 1 neurosurgeon per 100,000 people in a country where everyone has access to it, which kind of makes sense. Most doctors are not neurosurgeons.
Yeah.
And I don't see small cities of 100,000 people with tons of neurosurgeons, right?
Yeah.
Here are 3 key things that I need you to know about reality check. Number 1, consultants use them every single day. Every day, literally. And so you need to be able to do them. Number 2, you are expected to do them in your market sizing interviews. And number 3, no one is talking about them. You'll see market sizing example after market sizing example, and no one's even showing reality checks, much less teaching you how to do them. So basically, you need to do them, consultants need to do them, but no one is doing them. So if you do a good reality check in your interview, you're going to be setting yourself apart from almost every single candidate out there. Now, why is this the case? Why do they need you to do reality checks? Think about it. Every time a consultant does an analysis or estimates something, they're actually using a really complex Excel model. And this Excel model would be almost as time consuming to audit as it is to build. So they can't afford to audit every single model. The solution that the firm uses to make sure that they're not making mistakes, because they also can't afford to make these mistakes, is everyone in the organization needs to be able to run quick checks. The consultants who are building the models run quick checks on the model all the time. The managers who are looking at the model also run their checks. The partners who are looking at the results also run their checks. And so everyone's running checks and no mistakes happen. But to do that, they need to test it in interviews. And that's why you're expected to do them in your market sizings. Now, if you want to learn more about reality checks, how to do them, techniques to perform them, and get some practice, you know where to find them. Our free course, craftingcases.com/free course. Now let's move on to lesson number 6. Lesson number 6 is the advanced technique that you need to steal. So remember when I first asked Bruno how many neurosurgeons were there in the world? He actually gave me 2 different approaches and told me which one he thought was the best. Watch him do it.
All right. So number of neurosurgeons in the world. Okay, I have a couple approaches here. Find the number of neurosurgeries per year in the world, so total demand.
Yeah.
And divide that by the surgeries per surgeon on average.
Okay.
Now, my second approach would be to estimate the number of doctors, so active medical doctors, and multiply that by the percentage of those who are neurosurgeons. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and between these 2, I think I'd go with the first one because it captures demand as well as their productivity in a way.
Now, let me help you read between the lines so you understand what's really going on here. There's a hidden game going on in this moment. What's happening is I, as an interviewer, want to see
if Bruno can solve any case in the world, right? That's what consultants need to be able to do all the time. And consulting firms do that by giving the candidate 4 different cases, sometimes 6, in different interviews. So if you're lucky in one, you won't be lucky in all 4. When Bruno showed me 2 different approaches, he showed me that it's very much likely that he wasn't just lucky to solve this one case, because he could solve it in 2 different ways. So I would expect that for other cases, he would have at least one way to solve that case. So I'm a lot more certain that Bruno's a good candidate right now. Now, the second thing that Bruno is doing when giving me 2 different approaches is allowing me to jump in and help him. So what happens in many market sizing cases is the interviewer has some numbers with them. If you've done mock interviews as the interviewer, you've probably seen, give this number if provided, give this number if provided, if asked, right? Provide this number if asked. And so when Bruno shows me 2 different approaches, he allows me to, once I know that he's a good candidate that will solve the case, he allows me to jump in and say, take this route over here. I might tell him that I have some numbers there, but I might also not. I might also just tell him to go to that path, and then I will give him the data when he asks me to do that. But basically, he's allowing me to jump in because he's showing me that he's already a good candidate, and he's asking me which path is the best, and I know which path is the best because I have some numbers for that path, right? So I can help him. So when you're doing your cases, if you can come up with more than one approach to solving market sizing, then definitely do, and tell your interviewer which one you think is the best, but also ask them which one do they think is the best, so that you can show them that you're not being lucky by solving that case. They can throw anything at you and you'll solve it in 2 different ways if need be. Anyway, those are the 6 lessons that I wanted you to learn from this case. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording this and interviewing Bruno and challenging him. If you need to learn more about market sizing, you know where to find me. Just go to craftingcases.com/free course and join our free course on market sizes, estimations, and all other case interview fundamentals. I hope to see you inside.